One of the fundamental truths about being human is that you're a work in progress. But here's the problem. Most people don't even recognize that they're worth the effort to improve. And that's tragic. You have potential, an infinite well of possibility, but you treat yourself like you're disposable. You tolerate behaviors in yourself that you wouldn't accept from a friend. You speak to yourself in a way you never dare speak to someone you care about. Why? Why would you do that? It starts with this: you don't believe you're worth much. Somewhere along the way, you bought into the idea that your flaws define you, that your mistakes are the sum total of who you are. That's absurd. You're not a finished product. You're an eternal work in progress, and progress requires two things. First, the belief that improvement is possible, and second, the courage to take responsibility for it. Now, let's break that down. Believing in improvement doesn't mean being blind to your flaws. It means recognizing that your flaws are just that, flaws, not defining characteristics and responsibility. That's not blame. That's power. When you take responsibility for your life, you're saying, this is my mess, and I have the capacity to clean it up. That's not a burden, that's freedom. But valuing yourself also means something deeper. It means treating yourself as though you matter. That starts with discipline. People misunderstand discipline. They think it's a punishment. It's not. Discipline is the purest form of self-respect. It's saying, I'm going to do what's necessary, even if it's uncomfortable, because I'm worth the effort. When you value yourself, you don't indulge in habits that destroy you. You don't let your days slip away in aimless distraction. You decide that your time, your energy, and your attention are precious, because they are. And don't think for a second that valuing yourself is selfish. Quite the opposite. When you respect yourself, you become someone who can contribute meaningfully to the world. You can't help anyone else if you're falling apart. You can't lift anyone up if you're always dragging yourself down. People think self-sacrifice is noble, but there's a difference between genuine sacrifice and self-neglect. The former is choosing to give up something of value for a greater good. The latter is abandoning yourself, and there's nothing noble about that. So what do? Start small. Set a goal, any goal. It doesn't have to be grandiose. Maybe you decide to wake up 15 minutes earlier tomorrow. Maybe you commit to saying one kind thing to yourself today. Do something that sends a signal to your brain that says, I'm worth the effort. Because once you start acting like you matter, you'll begin to believe it. And when you believe it, you'll act on it even more. That's a positive feedback loop, and it's powerful. And remember this: the world will always reflect back to you the value you place on yourself. If you treat yourself poorly, others will take their cue from you. But when you start carrying yourself like you matter, when you act like your life is meaningful, people will respond to that. They'll see it. And you'll see it too. So stop waiting for someone else to come along and tell you you're worth it. You already are. Stop looking for permission to believe in yourself. Grant it to yourself. Because here's the truth. No one else can value you more than you value yourself. And the moment you realize that, everything starts to change. Every individual carries within them a reservoir of potential waiting to be explored and harnessed. However, what often limits people from reaching their fullest capacity is the belief that who they are today is fixed and immutable. This perception, while common, is fundamentally flawed. Human potential is dynamic. It is not a static entity confined by past failures, current circumstances, or even personal insecurities. Instead, it is an ever-evolving force shaped by the choices you make, the effort you exert, and the mindset you adopt towards self-growth. To recognize that your potential is dynamic means understanding that you are not defined by your mistakes or weaknesses. Mistakes are not final verdicts on your character or capabilities. They are merely data points, moments in time that provide valuable feedback. When you view your errors as learning opportunities rather than as reflections of your worth, you free yourself from the paralysis of self-doubt. It's this shift in perspective that transforms failure into progress and challenges into stepping stones. You begin to see that each experience, positive or negative, can contribute to your personal development when approached with a mindset of growth. One of the most liberating realizations about potential is that it can be cultivated intentionally. This cultivation requires effort, of course, but it does not demand perfection. Growth is not about sudden, radical change. It's about small, deliberate improvements made consistently over time. When you commit to developing yourself, even incrementally, you unlock an ongoing process of transformation. The person you are today is not the person you will be tomorrow, next year, or decades from now, provided you invest in yourself with intentionality. A critical aspect of tapping into this dynamic potential is self-awareness. To grow, you must first understand where you stand. Self-awareness allows you to identify your strengths, acknowledge your weaknesses, and recognize the areas of your life that require improvement. This clarity provides direction, ensuring that your efforts are focused and purposeful. Without self-awareness, potential remains abstract, a vague idea rather than a tangible force you can channel towards specific goals. Equally important is the belief that growth is possible regardless of where you are starting from. Often people limit themselves by comparing their current state to someone else's peak achievements. This comparison is not only unfair, but also counterproductive. Your journey is unique, and your potential is not diminished by another person's success. Instead of measuring yourself against others, focus on competing with who you were yesterday. Even a small step forward is evidence that you are moving in the right direction. Finally, recognizing that your potential is dynamic requires patience. Growth does not happen overnight. It is the result of sustained effort over time. There will be moments of frustration and setbacks along the way, but these are not indications of failure. They are natural parts of the process. When you adopt a long-term perspective, you realize that the journey itself is as important as the destination. Every small victory, every lesson learned, and every moment of perseverance contributes to your evolution. In acknowledging your potential as dynamic, you empower yourself to break free from limiting beliefs and embrace the possibility of continuous growth. You begin to see yourself not as a fixed entity, but as a work in progress, a person capable of becoming more, doing more, and contributing more with each passing day. This recognition is not just inspiring, it is transformative. It places the power for change firmly in your hands. Taking responsibility for your life is one of the most profound acts of self-respect you can engage in. It is the foundation of valuing yourself because it signifies that you acknowledge your ability to influence your circumstances, your behavior, and your future. Responsibility is often misunderstood as blame, something heavy or punitive that implies fault, but it's much more empowering than that. To take responsibility is to claim ownership of your life, your choices, and the outcomes they produce. It's an act of courage and self-empowerment because it means that while you may not control everything that happens to you, you do control how you respond and what you do next. Responsibility allows you to move from being a passive participant in your life to an active creator of it. Many people live in a state of reaction, constantly blaming external circumstances for their struggles or failures. While it's true that life often presents challenges beyond your control, adopting a mindset that places external factors at the center of your life leaves you powerless. When you shift your focus inward and take responsibility for what you can change, your actions, your thoughts, your decisions, you reclaim your agency. You begin to realize that while you may not have chosen your starting point, you have the ability to choose your path forward. Owning responsibility for your life also means facing uncomfortable truths about yourself. It requires honesty and self-reflection to recognize the ways in which your habits, attitudes, and decisions might be contributing to the very problems you wish to escape. This process isn't easy, but it is necessary. When you confront these truths, you gain clarity about what needs to change. It's not about judging yourself harshly or dwelling on past mistakes. It's about understanding where you are now so that you can begin to chart a course toward where you want to be. Responsibility is inherently tied to freedom. At first, this might seem paradoxical. After all, isn't responsibility a kind of burden? On the surface, it might feel that way, but in reality, it's the key to liberation. When you take responsibility, you free yourself from the limitations of victimhood. You stop waiting for others to fix your problems or for circumstances to magically improve, and instead you take deliberate action. This sense of ownership is what allows you to make meaningful progress. It's not about trying to control everything, it's about focusing on what you can influence and letting go of what you cannot. Valuing yourself through responsibility also means committing to self-improvement. If you believe you're worth the effort, you'll make choices that align with your goals and values, even when they're difficult. This might involve setting boundaries, prioritizing your health, or pursuing goals that require discipline and sacrifice. Every step you take in this direction reinforces the belief that your life matters and that you are capable of shaping it in meaningful ways. Ultimately, responsibility is not just about taking action, it's about how you perceive yourself. When you take responsibility, you're making a statement, I matter enough to take charge of my own life. This mindset is the bedrock of self-respect. It aligns your thoughts, behaviors, and values in a way to grow into the person you want to become. It's not always easy, but it's worth it because every step you take in taking responsibility is a step toward valuing yourself more. Discipline is one of the most powerful expressions of self-respect and a critical component of valuing yourself. Many people misunderstand discipline, seeing it as restrictive or punishing, something that limits freedom or diminishes enjoyment in life. In reality, discipline is the opposite. It is the foundation of freedom and fulfillment. When you are disciplined, you are actively choosing to care for yourself, to prioritize what is truly important, and to align your actions with your long-term goals and values. It is a profound act of self-love, signaling to yourself that you are worth the effort and that your life matters enough to warrant structure and commitment. Discipline is not about perfection, it is about consistency. No one is perfectly disciplined all the time, and that's not the point. The point is to build habits and routines that support your well-being and help you move closer to your goals, even when it's uncomfortable or inconvenient. Discipline often means delaying gratification, choosing what is beneficial in the long term over what feels good in the moment. This requires a certain level of maturity and self-awareness, as it forces you to confront the fact that immediate pleasures often come at the expense of future satisfaction. Whether it's resisting the temptation to procrastinate, making healthier choices for your body, or dedicating time to meaningful work, discipline is the tool that bridges the gap between where you are and where you want to be. At its core, discipline is about priorities. When you are disciplined, you are sending a clear message to yourself and to the world about what matters most to you. You are saying, I value my health, my growth, my relationships, my dreams. Every disciplined action reinforces that belief, building a sense of self-worth and confidence over time. Conversely, a lack of discipline can erode self-respect. When you consistently neglect your responsibilities, fall into destructive habits, or fail to act on your intentions, you subconsciously tell yourself that you don't matter enough to try. This creates a negative feedback loop where inaction leads to guilt or self-doubt, which in turn makes it harder to take positive steps forward. Discipline also cultivates resilience. Life is unpredictable, and challenges are inevitable. When you develop discipline, you build the inner strength to navigate difficulties without being derailed by them. A disciplined person doesn't crumble under pressure or give up at the first sign of resistance. Instead, they draw on their cultivated habits and routines to keep moving forward, even in the face of adversity. This resilience is a direct result of the self-respect that discipline fosters. You persevere because you believe your goals and well-being are worth fighting for. Importantly, discipline is not about depriving yourself of joy or spontaneity. It's about creating a framework within which you can thrive. By setting boundaries and maintaining structure, you give yourself the freedom to pursue what truly enriches your life. A disciplined life is not a rigid or joyless existence. It's a balanced and intentional one. It's a life in which you have the energy, focus, and resources to engage fully with what matters most to you. Every act of discipline, no matter how small, is a step toward valuing yourself more. It's proof that you believe in your own potential and are willing to work for it. Whether it's sticking to a morning routine, setting aside time for personal development, or simply choosing to follow through on what you've promised yourself, discipline is the mechanism by which you turn intentions into reality. Over time, these small acts of self-respect accumulate, transforming not only your habits but also your mindset. You begin to see yourself as someone capable of achieving and deserving of success, and that belief becomes a powerful force for growth. Discipline, far from being a constraint, is the key to unlocking your fullest potential and living a life of purpose and meaning. Taking care of yourself and valuing who you are is not an act of selfishness. It's a foundational requirement for living a meaningful life and contributing to the world around you. Many people operate under the false assumption that prioritizing their own well-being is indulgent or self-centered, but this couldn't be further from the truth. In reality, you cannot effectively help others, build meaningful relationships, or make a positive impact on the world if you are running on empty. When you value yourself enough to prioritize your physical, emotional, and mental health, you build the capacity to give more, to do more, and to be more for those who depend on you. Taking care of yourself starts with understanding your intrinsic worth. You matter, and because you matter, the way you treat yourself directly affects the quality of your life and the lives of those around you. Neglecting yourself, whether by ignoring your health, dismissing your needs, or pushing yourself to the brink of exhaustion, may seem noble in the short term, especially if it's done in the name of serving others. However, over time, self-neglect leads to burnout, resentment, and diminished effectiveness. You cannot pour from an empty cup, and when you allow yourself to be depleted, you have less energy, patience, and presence to offer the people and causes you care about. Valuing yourself also means setting boundaries. This can be challenging, especially if you're accustomed to prioritizing others at the expense of your own needs. But boundaries are not barriers. They are guidelines that protect your energy and ensure you can function at your best. Saying no when necessary, allocating time for rest, and honoring your own limits are all acts of respect for yourself and for the people who rely on you. When you enforce boundaries, you teach others how to treat you, and you set a standard for how relationships in your life should function. Healthy boundaries prevent you from becoming overwhelmed or exploited, allowing you to engage with others in a way that is sustainable and fulfilling. When you invest in yourself, you also become a source of inspiration and stability for those around you. People are deeply influenced by example. When they see you taking care of yourself, striving for balance, and pursuing growth, it gives them permission to do the same. Your commitment to self-respect and self-care becomes a model for others, demonstrating that valuing yourself is not selfish, it's necessary. Moreover, the energy and enthusiasm you gain from valuing yourself are contagious. You show up for others with a fuller presence, and your contributions carry greater impact because they come from a place of strength, not depletion. Valuing yourself through self-care is also a recognition of your interdependence with others. It acknowledges that when you are at your best, you are better equipped to build stronger connections, solve problems more effectively, and handle challenges with grace. Your ability to contribute meaningfully to your family, your workplace, or your community is directly tied to the care and attention you give yourself. Neglecting yourself, on the other hand, undermines not only your own well-being, but also your ability to be a positive force in the lives of others. In the end, taking care of yourself is not about putting yourself above others. It's about creating a strong foundation so you can stand tall and support those who need you. It's about recognizing that your well-being is not separate from your ability to contribute. It is integral to it. When you value yourself enough to prioritize self-care, you are not withdrawing from the world. You are equipping yourself to engage with it more effectively. This isn't selfishness, it's wisdom, and it's one of the most profound ways to honor both yourself and those around you. Building self-worth is a process, and one of the most effective ways to begin is by taking small, consistent actions that reinforce the belief that you are valuable. This idea may sound simple, but its impact is profound. Every small step you take towards self-improvement, no matter how insignificant it may seem at the moment, sends a powerful message to your subconscious. You matter. These small actions create a positive feedback loop where the effort you invest in yourself builds confidence, reinforces your sense of worth, and motivates you to keep going. The key to this process is starting small. Often people fall into the trap of thinking that significant change requires massive, sweeping actions. While ambitious goals have their place, they can also feel overwhelming, especially if you're starting from a place of low self-worth or self-doubt. Instead of trying to transform your entire life overnight, focus on manageable, realistic actions that you can take today. The first thing that inspires self-love and humility is creating a purpose for yourself. These might include simple things like making your bed in the morning, setting aside 5 minutes for reflection, or committing to drinking more water. These small victories may seem trivial on their own, but they represent a commitment to yourself, and that commitment is what matters. Consistency is another crucial element. The power of small actions lies not in their individual magnitude, but in their cumulative effect over time. When you follow through on these small commitments day after day, you build trust in yourself. This trust is essential for developing self-worth. It's easy to lose confidence when you constantly break promises to yourself, even small ones. But conversely, every time you follow through on a commitment, no matter how minor, you strengthen the belief that you are capable and reliable. This consistency helps to rewrite negative narratives about your ability to succeed or your worthiness of effort. As you accumulate small wins, you create momentum. Success breeds success, and each step forward makes the next step easier. This positive feedback loop builds not only your sense of worth, but also your resilience. When you start to see tangible results from your efforts, no matter how modest, it reinforces the idea that your actions matter and that you have the power to shape your life. This momentum can then be directed toward larger goals, as the foundation of self-belief you've built through small actions gives you the courage to take on bigger challenges. Another important aspect of this process is the shift in mindset that it fosters. Small, consistent actions help to reframe how you see yourself. Instead of focusing on what you lack or what you haven't achieved, you begin to see yourself as someone who takes initiative and makes progress. This shift in perspective is transformative. It moves you away from a fixed, self-limiting view of your potential and toward a growth-oriented mindset. You start to see setbacks not as failures, but as opportunities to learn and improve. Perhaps the most powerful thing about small actions is their accessibility. No matter where you are in life or what challenges you're facing, there's always something you can do to signal to yourself that you matter. These actions don't require extraordinary talent, resources, or time. They only require a willingness to begin. And once you begin, the process becomes self-sustaining. Each small act of self-care, discipline, or progress reinforces the belief that you are worthy of effort, creating a cycle of growth and self-respect that builds over time. Ultimately, the small actions you take each day are not just about achieving specific goals. They are about building a relationship with yourself, a relationship based on trust, respect, and belief in your own worth. This relationship is the foundation for everything else in your life. When you value yourself enough to take consistent action, you create a ripple effect that extends into every area of your life, transforming not only how you see yourself, but also how you engage with the world around you. Rather than assuming that success lies ahead, we build our best life here.